Hi fellow animals, welcome to Kimba's Kingdom, home of everything Kimba the White Lion. If there's something you'd like to see more of or less of, please let me know in the comments. I'm making this channel for you guys, so let me know what you want to see. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss a thing. So, episode 5. This episode is one of the hardest to review, because the English and Japanese versions are dramatically different. It would be unfair to focus solely on one or the other, so really I'm going to have to talk about both. Disclaimer, I should also mention that I don't know Japanese and the series isn't subbed, so what I know of the Japanese version I've learned from websites and other Kimba fans. Anyway, that out of the way, let's get into the review. In the English dub, this episode is pretty good. It's got some very cute and silly moments, some nice development of Speedy's character and the friendship between Kimba and Speedy, and some subtle commentary on human attitudes towards animals. I think the way the police chief dismisses Roger's concerns about his missing lion cub really emphasises how little regard we have for animals. This is a baby animal, scared and alone, and the police chief couldn't care less. He devotes every single police resource in the city towards finding a monster that may or may not even exist, because even the mere possibility that a human might be at risk is infinitely more important to him than the fact that a baby animal is alone, scared, and in immediate and serious danger. Kimba's not even worth sending out a single officer in the police chief's mind. And the thing that's really impactful about this is that it's totally accurate. In the real world, there are millions of puppies and kittens living without food or shelter, living in constant danger and discomfort in the streets of major cities, and our governments are doing absolutely nothing about it. We just plain don't care. We can kid ourselves and say it's because humans come first, but no. We spend public money on pretty looking sculptures, on subsidies for mega corporations, on redesigning the logos for all our public transport every couple of years. None of these things are necessary for human quality of life. The fact is that it's just easier for us to pretend animal suffering isn't a problem and look the other way, and this episode highlights that subtly but brilliantly. I also love Speedy's characterization here. We see how he's quick to rush to violence and fight for what he believes is justice without getting all the facts first. We see how he's fiercely loyal to family, putting himself in serious danger by taking on a clearly stronger opponent to avenge his grandfather. And we also see his stubbornness and determination. It's a really great introduction to every trait of his character, and we get it all through showing rather than telling. I also love the fight sequence between Kimba and Speedy. It's very short, but it communicates a lot about both the characters. The way they get right in each other's face shows how serious they both are. There's no turning back from that point. The way Speedy leaps down from the tree while Kimba waits calmly for the attack shows where they are at it. I suck today.
I'll pretend I'm shot.
The way Speedy leaps down from the tree while Kimba waits calmly for his attack shows where they're at emotionally. Kimba knows he has nothing to worry about. There's no way Speedy can do him any serious damage, and he's holding back, just wanting to snap Speedy out of his rampage, not wanting to hurt his friend. Speedy, on the other hand, is throwing everything at Kimba. He has to avenge his grandfather, and Kimba's standing in his way. He's holding nothing back. The detail that went into the fight scene is pretty impressive too. It's easy to miss it just watching the episode at normal speed, but if you go frame by frame, you can actually see Kimba and Speedy wrestling for control, and you can see how the fight goes down the whole way through. It's actually a pretty well done sequence. And honestly, this episode did a really good job of selling me on Speedy's character. I adored him from the moment he was on screen, and I was excited every time we got to see him in an episode since. The scenes with Roger, Mary, Mr. Pompous and Kimba exploring the city of Paris are great too. The visual jokes are pretty funny. They're not super deep or anything, they're just plain silly and I love it. It was hilarious, for example, when Mr. Pompous just kept piling sugar onto his coffee as he stared in stunned silence at his bickering companions. The various images of Kimba imagining himself and his friends as fine art were also pretty hilarious, and gave us some fun insight into Kimba's character. his shining creativity, and his insatiable curiosity and eagerness to learn about the world. It's pretty cute and adorable to watch. Kimba attempting to introduce himself to an animal fur was also pretty funny, though given the context of the rest of the series, there's a tragedy to it as well. It was dramatic irony, really. Kimba, the idealistic dreamer of peace between humans and animals, is directly seeing the result of violence towards animals and doesn't even realize it. It's funny, but also sad, reminding us how Kimba's idealistic view of how things ought to be is so far removed from how things truly are. Classic Kimba the White Lion hitting us with those complex feels. But there's a couple of things in the English version of the episode that just seem a little off. First of all, in the English dub, Kimba met Roger for the first time after Mary disappeared. So Roger, Mary and Kimba being in the same place at the same time plain doesn't make any sense. It couldn't have been a flashback to before episode 3 because Kimba wouldn't have known Roger, but it couldn't have taken place after because Mary would be lost in the jungle. The original Japanese version clears all this up. In the Japanese version of episode 3, Roger reveals that he met Kimba earlier and they're being reunited, so it all falls into place. The scenes in episode 5 were a flashback to Kimba's time in the human world with Roger, and there are no inconsistencies. A bigger problem though is the quite awkward ending in the English dub. Tens of animals from Kimba's jungle somehow end up visiting the fair in Paris and walking down the streets. It seems pretty absurd, even for Kimba the White Lion. Well, this is the fault of translation changes as well. In the original Japanese version, that sequence showed not the World's Fair, but Kimba and Speedy's imagination, with Kimba telling Speedy about his dream of building a grand city where animals and humans can live in peace, where animals no longer suffer like Speedy's grandfather did. It was an impactful and beautiful ending, turning the personal story of Speedy and Kimba throughout the episode into an emotive and effective argument for Kimba's dream, and reinforcing the core conflict of the series, Kimba's struggle to achieve that dream. So overall, how was the episode? Well, it was certainly good. Both versions were cute, emotional, and a fun time to watch. They had great characterization of Speedy and Kimba, and a really resonant message about our attitude towards animals. However, while the English episode was good, the Japanese episode was masterful. It had a more internally consistent plot that maintained suspension of disbelief. It drove home that central message harder by not censoring impactful moments. But most importantly of all, its conclusion was a stroke of genius. In just a couple minutes of screen time, it turned a story about two friends having an argument and a guy taking his pet to Paris into an emotive and hard-hitting case for Kimba's idealistic dream. The conclusion turned the episode into something bigger than itself, into almost a parable of sorts, a story to show just why Kimba's dream is so necessary, why it matters so much. So, for that reason, the English version is a great episode. I highly recommend it and it's a fun watch. But the Japanese version is something else entirely. It's an amazing episode. And if you do know Japanese, then I absolutely recommend you watch it, because it's a truly wonderful work of storytelling. That's all for now, fellow animals. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more, please subscribe. And if you've got some spare change, please donate to my Patreon. It'll help me pay for ads and help this channel grow. If you can't get enough Kimba content, feel free to join our Kimba fan club on Discord. Everyone is welcome, even if you're new to Kimba. Thanks again for watching and have a great day.